let us hear from some of the people who've done just that. Please help me welcome to the stage Sean Godoy, co-founder at PropTech Africa and SA PropTech, who will look at how to scale a PropTech in Africa and why succeeding is so tough. Sean. Sean will be sharing the experience from recent launches and learnings from the founders and CEOs themselves. Please help me welcome his panel. Mostafa Beltagy, CEO at Nawy, Tola Adesanmi, CEO at Spleet, Bhongolwethu Sonti, Sustainability Ventures Africa lead at Plug and Play Africa, and David Kimani, co-founder, CIO at RentScore Africa. Thank you so much. Please help me by giving a round of applause to our panel.
Thank you so much, Incubators. Fantastic to be here. As was said, my name is Sean Godoy. I'm co-founder of PropTech Africa and SA PropTech. So I've had the privilege to be involved in the space for a few years, and I think as we've seen from all the discussions today, things are only getting better. Even though we're sort of relatively still a immature space, I think we're moving past that now, and things are gaining momentum. As we can see from the various really exciting PropTechs and the success that they're garnering. So we've got some great ones with us here. So thanks very much for everyone for joining us. So we have Mostafa Beltagy from Nawy, Tola Adesanmi from Spleet, and David Kimani from RentScore. So welcome all, and what's exciting here is we've got representation from East, West, and North Africa, with Egypt, Kenya, and Nigeria represented, which I think is quite cool. Also good to have North Africa represented, because I think it's good to have part of the conversation now with that region represented, because there's been some really exciting fundraising and success coming out of Egypt and also Morocco. So great to have you here. So just to kick off, if I could ask you just to provide us with a very quick intro and description of your organization, just in case people have missed that. So Mostafa, if you could start.
Sure. I think, quick intro. We are both a property listing and brokerage platform, and have recently moved into mortgage as well. What we do is allow customers, and mainly developers, to list their properties on our platform. So over 100 developers, 400 projects listed on our platform. And then consumers, both on our website and app, can navigate, browse, compare between all the different developments, mainly in the primary space, and then are serviced by our sales teams and customer agents who take them all the way through to transaction, and we earn a commission on those transactions. So that's been the core of the business. Recently also moved into mortgage and facilitating people to get a house when there's very limited mortgage solutions, with a bank backing us with about $50 million. So that's quickly what we do.
Great, thanks Mostafa. David, if we could move on to you.
Thanks a lot. As mentioned, I'm David Kimani from Nairobi, Kenya, and our company is called RentScore. And what we do at RentScore is we're building real estate financial infrastructure. So currently, what we're developing is a screening and scoring engine for tenants and landlords. So think of it as the credit reference bureau for real estate players. And through this scoring engine, we're able to tell risk and quality assessment of tenants and landlords. And through that, we're able to offer unsecured financing to tenants for deposit, as well as unsecured financing to landlords for working capital. Apart from that, now we see that banks and financial institutions can get to use our scoring engine to make lending decisions, especially in the affordable housing sector, because currently within the industry, getting a mortgage, or banks are still using traditional methods of bank records to give mortgage. And a large part, maybe in Kenya mainly, of the informal and entrepreneurs have their revenues going on mobile money. So they're sort of underbanked, have bank accounts, but a majority of the transactions are happening on mobile, and they're still left out. Because personally, I'm in the same situation. As much as I can afford a mortgage, I'm still not mortgage worthy within the Kenyan market. So this is the problem we're trying to solve. Yeah.
Thanks very much, David. Tola, if you could finish off brief intro and description of your organization.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tola. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Spleet. At Spleet, we're building financial services to make renting a home much easier in Africa. To give you context, in markets like Nigeria, we pay our rent 1 to 2 years in advance. And that's not local to us. Ghana has the same problem. French-speaking Africa has the same problem. Some of French-speaking Africa. But then in other markets, like you might be familiar with, there are situations where tenants have to pay 3 months or 6 months or 9 months security deposits in advance to secure a home. And the value of that security deposit is 1 month's rent, usually. So we've built 2 products. A marketplace, a double-sided marketplace that helps landlords rent their homes to verified tenants and automates collection of rent. On that side, tenants can also find a home and get to pay their rent monthly, which sort of reduces the turnaround time or the rent cycle from about 30 days to 7 days. And then we have another product called Rent Now, Pay Later, which currently in Nigeria, enables tenants who already have homes or want to renew their rent, or who have found homes by themselves, finance their rent. So we're paying rent to landlords in advance for them. They're making just 1 month equity contribution, and then they get to pay their rent back to us monthly.
Thank you, Tola. As you can see, we've got a really interesting lineup of PropTechs operating in the residential space, which tends to be the largest sector that attracts so much activity in PropTech. That's generally a global theme. And within various African regions, we can see there's various pain points or challenges that can be addressed with innovative PropTech solutions like we're seeing here. So I think I always say I think the market fundamentals are key, and obviously real estate fundamentals when you're developing something, so that's actually solving something real. So we're obviously discussing how to scale the PropTech. So you've described your product and how you perhaps identified this pain points, but in terms of drawing on your journey, how would you advise PropTechs when they looking for that pain point, or they've developed it, or sort of addressed it or found it themselves? So what should you look for, and how do you actually test that? Because this is the first step way in the beginning. So when do you know like this could actually have some legs? So Mostafa.
Yeah,
thanks.
so I think, I can answer this in the example of our company and how it started. So the idea was, it came from a very personal pain point, and I think that's always where good ideas come from. So I was looking to buy a property, and I asked someone, who I trusted, where should I buy this property? And he said, you buy in that place. And I said, but why this one? Why not that one? What's the price per meter comparable? What are things, what's the rent yield going to be like? I said, no, don't ask me all those questions. You can't find that. We'll have to go place to place to do it. And that immediately, got the light bulb going. We need to have something that we can compare all these different places to together. And once that was there, it was, okay, are we going to actually get customer traction? Are customers going to want to come onto this platform? So we started small, very little advertising, see if we're going to get, beyond that, some organic traffic. When that started to come, it was, okay, will these leads actually convert into sales? So will those interested online buyers eventually turn into someone who would purchase something? And we started working and testing that out. So it took us, I would say, maybe 1.5 years just to perfect and understand what it would take to market, get customers on the platform. And at that time, the company had scaled to like 10 people. From 1.5 years ago, we went from around 15, 20 people into the business to now 300 people into the business. It's because we had really fine-tuned and perfected the model of online lead generation, how they're being handled, all the KPIs internally and all the systems internally to allow it to scale. So my 2 cents on this would be, figure out your pain point, do the product market fit. Once you found a working formula, then throw everything in the kitchen sink at it until you you get it to a breaking point. And that's where the funding has truly helped. So we've proven our point, went and raised a good amount of funding, shown that we could scale, and we're still scratching the surface of it, now reaching $440 million in annualized sales. And that's still, a fraction of the market. And that's really my 2 cents on the topic.
Great, thanks, Mostafa. That testing period, initial launch, I think that could be quite tough, and to have the resources, not just funding, which Dolapo mentioned. I think that it's been said that in terms of the general startup tech space in Africa, there's a huge lack of pre-seed funding, so when guys are just starting out. So I think there's a lot more activity to come out of that, but obviously I think you have to think about that sort of incubation period for yourself, and that you can actually carry that out with contacts and obviously funding, bootstrapping. But yeah, very interesting. David, in your experience and your advice for someone identifying that golden spot?
Thanks a lot. And I'll definitely reiterate what Mostafa said. So in our case, my co-founder is the one with the real estate experience. She has had her career in property management. And during that career, she suffered from a couple of pain points. First was getting a quality tenant. And the second one was now just how do I do all my daily tasks and manage the property? What technology can I use to make my job easier? So what we decided was, because sometimes you don't get it right with the first idea. Majority of the times you'll have a few ideas you're playing around with, and now your research is what it takes for you to land on the right one. So in our case, we also took some time because we started researching the market in 2020. And the first agenda maybe was to look at property management as maybe the gap. But during the course of that, now we ended up finding that the main problem is at the point of getting the tenant. How do you get a quality tenant? So what we decided was, first of all, do an MVP. And for my advice again is, before you build a whole technological solution, just do the most viable product that you can. So in our case, we just came up with our screening form. We figured how to model that to tell the quality of a tenant, to the point of even calling the tenant's previous landlords, just to understand the rental history, assessing the statements. So we did things manually at first, just to see if this problem will be solved. We went light on tech, and then after interest came up is when now we decided, let's now build the tech. So we're still early. So right now is when now we're in the funding stage, but we believe at least we've gone through that hurdle of product market fit. Now the next thing is growth. So the advice would be, just start minimally. Don't go building or raising before you solve the problem. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Dave. I think that's really good advice. Someone once said, when you're thinking of putting together a startup, the best thing you can do is launch. So, and I guess that doesn't mean having like all the bells and whistles and building this massive, expensive platform and then going to market. So if you can get that minimal viable product, or even before that, just start engaging, start testing and building the contacts. I think that's a really good point. Tola, some of your insights there, please.
Yeah, I agree with them, because when we started in 2018, we bootstrapped for about 18 months before we raised any round of funding. And our reason behind that was I had failed at startup the previous time, right, for various reasons. And this problem that we're solving was a big pain point. Like, I didn't see it as a pain, but when my co-founder moved back from the UK, he saw it as a pain because he was already paying rent monthly, right? And he for like 2 years just couch surfed, right? So it was really a pain that we had experienced that we were solving. But because I always like to say, I'd built in fintech before, and PropTech is very, very different from that, in that there's this physical asset that you are innovating for, right? And, you know, obviously 99% of the time that asset is immovable, right? The players in that market are very, very they don't want to change, right? They're stuck in their ways. So like he said, you want to take it slowly, right? And understand how this product will work for the players in the property space. Because without the property, you can't, innovate with the PropTech, right? So we did that for 18 months. And when we started to see some demand for our product, we spoke to angels, local angels, that, we had built this, we had some traction, and we raised a round. I think another very important thing that's key to starting is incubators and accelerators. So when we started out, we were actually, because I had built in before, I wasn't welcoming those things, right? But we got into the MetaProp Accelerator, and that's really, really kick-started and changed our, mindsets, especially around growth, right? You can build this beautiful product, but if you can't distribute it, it really doesn't make sense. And sort of creating those distribution vectors, right, for us has become very, very important. And yeah, I think that's how I would advise that people start, and product market fit and then growth after that.
Great, thanks, Tola.
I'd just like to add something onto your question, because I think, for the pre-seed money and the product market fit, I think there are a couple of components to consider here. One is also the founding team. So one of the easiest ways to get pre-seed money is if you collect a very solid pre-founding team. So pre-seed, if you have a team that shows that all the critical components of this really addressable market size is there, true expertise are in place. And this, I think, goes to people who are currently in the industry. Because if you take a senior exec from one of the big companies who wants to come out and do a PropTech and combine that with someone who is solid on the technology space, product space, and you say, hey, we're a team, we're going to build this, much easier to get funding than someone out of college with a great idea. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for people from within the industry with strong credentials to be able to do a lot in the PropTech space, because they would crack the pre-seed, the funding early, very, very early on. Second thing, and one of the good things about PropTech, I think, is unlike many other industries, usually unit economics, if you have a product fit, should be quite decent. So if you're earning a commission, if you're issuing a loan, you're actually making real revenue, and there can be a significant amount that flows through to your bottom line. And then you just need to fund the tech and fund the other components. So make sure you're building solid unit economics, and especially in the current environment of investing, unit economics are critical. In the past, people cared less and just looked at growth. Now, unit economics really matter, and that's something that in the PropTech space, probably easier to deliver than in many other tech spaces where you need to burn a hell of a lot of cash before you can make some profits or show that you can make some money.
Thanks, Mostafa. A really good point there. Just to highlight there, I think it's you can't get caught up in this really crazy, sexy idea you've got, and maybe get a bit blinded to forget about the fundamentals, those business elements, and you're going to have to present those to motivate your case to investors or customers. So, business fundamentals are key, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Tola, something you mentioned was engaging with the actual real estate industry, and a bit of maybe a resistance you find there, which is, I think, standard for any new tech in entering industries. You'll get resistance. Perhaps there's a need for education, etc., and maybe a bit of frustration. But it's often you'll see the PropTech saying, these property companies, they don't understand. They stuck in their sort of their ways. But I think it's important to realize and understand where they're coming from. As the real estate players, the market they're operating in, the sort of needs and objectives and constraints they have. So on that sort of in your journey, how did you go about understanding? So founding team, like Mostafa said, very important. It'd be great if there's real estate skills or experience in that, or perhaps they need to come in at some point, because I think when tech and real estate fundamentals and skills come together, that's when you could have something really exciting. So Tola, then we'll go to David. How did you approach that? So you said your co-founder had this, he experienced this issue, and how did you go about engaging with the real estate players? You told us a bit about that, and then importantly, what advice would you have for someone to engage, and how much do you need to understand? You bring someone on, what would you encourage people to do?
And this will buttress Mostafa's point. So both my co-founder and I met because my family has a real estate company that's over 50 years old, and he was working for them, right? So we sort of have that background, and that's how we met, right? And it just so happens that this problem existed, right? So, and I was building in technology already, right? And he was doing real estate acquisitions. Right now, he's actually doing a lot of construction work. So we have that background, right? The third piece to the puzzle was finance. We needed someone with finance experience, and that's how we brought Daniela, my third co-founder, on. And because I had failed at startup before, there was a bit of like knowledge on how I wanted to start, right? So I knew that, we both have real estate experience. I have tech experience. We need someone that, that would, if we're going to do lending, if we're going to be collecting money, things like that, who has the finance experience. And we brought Daniela on as our COO. So that's how we kickstarted that. And I think in taking that to the next level and, sort of creating a waterfall to the team as a whole, we tried a lot of things, right? We were nimble, and we could afford to do that because for 18 months, we weren't responsible for other people's monies, right? So we were able to like test things out, test people out, what works, what doesn't work, what approach to this solution works. Because even though like when we started out, our tagline was easier living, right? We sort of did the short stay thing. We built a lot of technology, but as we started to fine tune it, we stuck to what the problem was and decided that we're going to face this problem head on and solve it, singularly, instead of thinking of how we can make money, in different ways. I think my advice to people would be, first of all, don't, and it's a mistake we made initially, don't make comparisons. Like the startup ecosystem is very big, right? And as a prop tech, you're doing yourself a disservice comparing yourself to other verticals, so fintech, health tech. Some of these other players, like Mostafa said, are expecting those companies to grow fast. Prop tech can't grow fast in that way, but what we can have is solid unit economics, right? Because from day one, if you're solving a rental problem, you're taking commission, right? If you're solving a brokerage problem, you're taking a commission. So you would have revenue from day one. You should have revenue from day one, especially if you're solving like fundamental problems, except maybe things that you have to demo for long periods of time and things like that. Another thing would be, don't rush the fundraise, right? I know that in the market today, like one of the great things for startups to do is raise, pardon my French, shitloads of money. But when you do that, and you have money that you can't or you don't know how to deploy, you're stuck with money that you can't create value out of, right? So I would say get to a point where you know that you have product market fit. And product market fit sometimes looks like I have more demand than supply, or I have a long wait list that genuinely needs my product. In our case, that was it. We had over 60,000 people on our wait list, genuinely looking to rent a home or, finance their rent. And in our own case, at least with our seed round, the investors started pouring in, right? Because there's real value that you have created. But yeah, that would be my advice. I think the third advice would be around fundraising as well. the market has reset or is resetting. So everything that happened in 2021, almost everything that happened in 2021 was probably good luck, right? Now people are, investors care about unit economics. They care about whether you're making money or not. They care about everything they used to care about in 2018. So fundraising is a numbers game. Think about it as you need to get 100 no's before you get the first yes type of thing. So don't treat it as an emotional game. Yeah.
Great, lots to take in there, really good points. I think you should just write a book and distribute and we'll see the PropTech industry explode, but really, really good insights, so thanks for that. David, in your experience, so coming back to engaging with the real estate industry, so you also had a colleague or co-founder that was in that, so you had the skills sort of on board. And then what did you experience when trying to communicate with these real estate companies and sort of the points of perhaps resistance when dealing with them, and how did you overcome that, complementing internal skills to perhaps expanding externally in your knowledge?
So to add on to Tola's point, anyone who's running a PropTech startup here knows the toll it takes on you in terms of trying to figure out who you're selling to. Because weirdly enough, real estate is one of the highest earning industries up there with banking. But I don't know if I should say it's stuck in its manual ways or it's slow to adopt technology. Because in our case, the first target we were looking at was property managers. So you think since property managers need quality tenants, which equals to happier landlords, definitely once you tell them how to get good tenants will be a no-brainer. But you talk to them and then the agenda of the day is, how do I get my deposit? So we were sitting there wondering, but we were able to determine the quality. So still, that's not such a big problem enough for them to get into it. Even in property management systems, same thing. Yes, at the end of the month from 20th to 30th, I'm stuck in the office the whole day doing recon, but still the onboarding process, even just the migration of tenants from Excel to system seems like such a serious hurdle for them that they still continue working the way they are. So what we decided is, why don't we go to the tenants who are their end customers, solve a problem for them, then pick up interest. No wonder you said that in PropTech, mainly major PropTechs are focusing on residential because that's where majority of the movement is. So that's what we decided. Let's just go do something for the tenants first, bring them on board, bring that stickiness there. Then from there, now we can come and tell the property managers, this is what we've done. So why don't you think that you can plug in? And once that happened, because we were not even targeting landlords at first. Once we picked up traction with tenants, landlords started asking, now what can you do for us? Because we need our money on the 1st rather than on the 15th. So that's how we continued building. And the other thing I'd say is just fail fast as you can. Don't dwell on an idea because you're trying to force it on the market. If the idea works, look for who will buy it within the value chain, because there's always a value chain there. Yeah.
Great, thanks, David. I think you kind of illustrated it well there, really understanding what your end users are going to look for. So going and speaking to them and saying we offer X, Y, Z, and knowing that that's something that's going to fit in with what they're doing and the problems they're encountering. And also interesting, I guess B2B, B2C, and perhaps where you start, because in the property industry there's normally, and especially in what we're doing here, there's that B2B is probably the middleman, and then you've got the end consumer. So understanding both, and if you make it easier for them with their end user, it's obviously going to help them meet their objectives. So it makes a lot of sense. On that, Mostafa, do you have any, so we've been talking to the real estate industry, but in terms of having, the B2C and B2B elements, do you have advice or insights from your journey?
For sure. And I think, to break the stigma of, all the property people aren't interested in technology, I think there are two extremes. There are the ones who are telling you, show us the value. Look, I don't care about your technology. I don't care what you do behind it. I just, are you going to bring me sales? Are you going to deliver me money? And those, when we started out, some of the first people we talked to, the big developers, that was their attitude. Like, yeah, I'll give you the data, you're a broker. What you do with it, none of my business, just make me money, right? That's absolutely fine. But we also had people who wanted to put advertising money into our, platform. And I said, guys, we have nothing yet. If you put that money, I might not give you a return, and I don't want to create a negative stigma against my brand that I take money and then don't deliver anything back. So you will have to deal with different groups. And I think bottom line is you have to show value, and you need to bootstrap, hustle your way to start showing them value until then you can start to dictate different terms. So now in our core business, with the scale we have, we're the second biggest, effectively, brokerage in the country. I can dictate, very different terms on commission. I can dictate different terms on how they give us their data, the quality of the data that they give, something I could have never been able to do on a B2B relationship before I had scale. The second component is, we're building, for example, for the developers now, their projects that haven't been built in 3D format, so they can use those to sell to the clients directly online, and we can use it as well for our agents. We've probably spoken to 10 of the biggest developers. Only one was truly super excited about it. We worked with that one, even though they were probably the smallest out of the bunch, and the other one saying, yeah, let's explore, let's see. As soon as they now see it live and happening, I have the other coming to me saying, can we do this? How quickly can you help us put it? And so on. We did it for free with the first, just to prove a point that we can bring value. And we have the scale and the ability to do that as of yet. So I think prove your value on the B2B side. A lot of this is going to be a lot of skepticism on the opposite side, and you need to find a way to prove that value, and then you can be able to, dictate terms, renegotiate, discuss things that make sense for you. But create that value. That's the most important part.
Really good points. I mean, although models might differ, I think to go to the consumer market can be very difficult. You're speaking to a lot of different individuals. So in terms of reaching that scale, I think a key component that you've touched on is finding that partner that can give you exposure. So obviously finding that business elements of the system in organizations that are looking to perhaps improve in a way that you can assist. So I think that's really important. I think we're on 10 minutes, so I think I've got my last point to you, and then we'll look if we've got any questions. So we've touched on a lot of things here. So takeaway points. What do you actually think are the key elements of a scalable prop tech? I guess it's difficult to say because there's a lot of moving parts, and I guess markets change, that type of thing. But I guess it's also some of the soft stuff. You mentioned founders, raising finance, but then ability to scale with keeping in mind the business fundamentals, building a team, the oversight of your financials, but at the same time being aware of your pain points and that it's relevant to the market, which I think you've all demonstrated really well. So your key takeaways, what do you think makes a scalable prop tech, and what do those investors or users look for? So if they have those elements as you progress, these are the ones that'll push people over the line and raise, I guess, confidence. So maybe Tola, if we start with you.
I think it's the 3 Ps, people, products. I forget what the last one is, but that's what people are looking for, right? The people are going to build the products, right? And if you get good people, you're not going to suffer with fundraising and things like that, right? For instance, with my co-founding mix, my other co-founders don't want to be seen, right? So I do all the fundraising, I do all the CEO work, whereas like my COO is doing a lot of things that make us look good, right, to investors, right? So I think for us, like the number one thing that we focus on is the people. You don't necessarily have to have a real estate background, especially in certain teams that we work with. We have internally, but you have to have the drive and the belief that what we're building is going to make an impact, right? Product is very important, and it's people that will build that product. And it has to be a solid product. It has to be what people want. It's like what one of the founders of YC always says: build things that people want, right? It makes no sense making up problems for people then because you have this beautiful solution that you want to prefer. And in our own situation, like someone asked me outside, what's driving this long wait list, or what's driving this growth? It's really the Nigerian problem or the Ghanaian problem, right? The Ghanaian rental problem. It's nothing fantastic or that we've done. We've just built a product that fits that problem. Again, my co-founder came back and he saw that, he made us aware that this is not the right way to rent a home, right? And that's what switched, that for us. But yeah, in terms of like fundraising, I think investors are not the smartest people, right? Even though they pose as that. And
you say that because you've raised the money.
They're not the smartest people. You know the problem. You know how to build the product. They only have one product, which is money, right? And they absolutely have to deploy that cash. If they don't deploy that cash, they don't meet their own. So understand going into all those conversations that they actually want to give you this cash or need to give you this cash. The question is, are you positioning yourself as the right person to collect this cash from them, right? To create value for them in the long run. So, I started to approach those conversations as I know what I'm doing more than you know what I would do, right? I'm just going to make you money. I'm going to make you rich. And if you sort of approach fundraising, it gives you more confidence to, attack whatever questions they're giving you. And if you go through the fundraising process, or if you also find that investors ask the wrong questions, right? And for us, like the investor-founder fit for us have always been investors that have asked the right questions, right? So investors are not that smart. They just have cash, or they just know how to play with cash, right? You just think about that journey that way.
No, good points there. I'm sure the investors in the room are liking you a lot right now. But it's a good point. I think it's communication, understanding is really important, and there's understanding your industry and industry players, understanding the customer and the issue they're facing, all the industry player, and then understanding the investors. These are people that you're going to encounter, understand where they're coming from, so you can speak the right language. We've got a few minutes left, so I think we'll just look for any 3 minutes to be precise. So
do you mind that I take just 1 minute to comment on that very, very quickly?
Yeah, please.
So I think, the phrasing of investors are not so smart. I think that more importantly, you know your business better. And I think that's the point that's trying to be made here. And it's important that the investors feel that when you have this conversation. And the last point, so all the product market fit, unit economics, all that's fine, but the scalability in a prop tech is always a problem. So being able to show that you will be able to deploy this money and continue the same unit economics and grow, that's what allows for funds. So when we raised $1 million, we tripled the business in 6 months. Then I got $4 million on the back of that, and now we're going towards 15 because we continued to do 4.6 times the business year on year, because we're able to show that we're able to grow at that speed and deploy that money and continue to do the unit economics. So I think important for investors to see that, beyond the fact that, all your fundamentals, your people, your unit economics, and all of that works out. So just my 2 cents. I hope I didn't take too long.
No, perfect. Great insights there. Do we have any questions? We've got 2 minutes, so obviously we're all around, so it's sometimes better to have a conversation afterwards, but I don't think we have anyone here. Okay, everyone's ready for lunch. I saw someone's put wine out already, so maybe that's what everyone's seen. Some have left already. But yeah, I think this has been a fantastic conversation. There's a lot to take away, and I think you're all proof that it's obviously possible. and you're solving real issues out there. And I think you're sort of laying the foundation for other PropTechs to come along. And you've found your areas, and like I said, we're looking at residential here, but as you find success and awareness and adoption grows in the general industry, I think you're opening doors for others in the commercial sector or other elements of residential. So I think it's exciting. And while scaling can be tough, it's most definitely not impossible. So a big thank you to our panelists. I think we could give them a round of applause. Yeah, pleasure speaking to all of you, and wish you continued success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.